All right, let's dive right in to British English. I know, you're probably thinking of tea and crumpets and fancy accents.
Then you wouldn't be entirely wrong.
Right. But there's so much more to uncover, and we're going to use this podcast script you sent us to dig deep, going way beyond just the how-to and into the why bother.
Because believe me, there are some seriously compelling reasons.
I'm all ears.
So what are we looking at here? What makes this script so special?
Well, it's all about learning British English, but not just the textbook stuff. It dives into, why it even matters in the first place.
Okay, that's interesting. Why should we bother with British English? I mean, isn't American English good enough?
Well, think about it this way. How many times have you watched a British film or TV show and thought, man, I wish I understood those jerks better?
Yeah, all the time. Especially with those British panel shows. They're so quick-witted.
Exactly. It's like having this whole layer of culture locked away because you don't have the key. And this script, it's like a master key. It unlocks British media, literature, even history in a whole new way.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see the appeal. It's like suddenly you're not just watching Doctor Who, you're getting Doctor Who.
Right. And beyond just understanding the words, it's about picking up on the nuances, the cultural references, the humor that's so specific to Britain.
I'm already sold. So where do we even begin? I mean, British English, that's like a whole other language, right?
Not a completely different language, but definitely its own beast. But that's what makes it so exciting. It's like learning a secret code.
A secret code. I like the sound of that. So what's the first step in cracking this code?
Well, this script really emphasizes immersion, surrounding yourself with as much British English as possible.
Like listening to music, watching TV, reading books.
All of that. And don't just stick to the classics. Explore some modern British music like the 1975 or Stormzy.
Okay, I'm writing this down. The 1975 Stormzy. Got it. What about TV shows? Anything you'd recommend?
Oh, there's so much good stuff out there. Peaky Blinders is fantastic for that gritty Birmingham slang.
Right.
And then you've got The Great British Bake Off, which is just pure, wholesome fun.
And probably a great way to pick up some baking vocabulary.
Exactly. It's like learning and being entertained at the same time.
Okay, I'm liking this approach already, but what about the accent? I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm putting on a fake voice.
I hear you. Nobody wants to sound like a caricature. But this script actually talks about that, about finding your own comfort level.
So it's okay to just focus on understanding and speaking clearly, even if it's not a perfect British accent.
Exactly. It's about communication first and foremost. And, you might be surprised how your accent naturally starts to shift the more you immerse yourself.
Oh, that's kind of cool, like a subconscious absorption.
Right. Your brain starts picking up on the sounds and rhythms without you even realizing it. But if you do want to work on your accent, the script mentions some helpful tools.
Oh, yeah? Like what?
Apps like Elsa Speak can be great for pronunciation practice. And there are tons of YouTube channels dedicated to British accent training.
Awesome. So we've got our media lined up. We're practicing our pronunciation. What's next?
Well, no language learning journey is complete without tackling vocabulary. And this script doesn't disappoint. It's packed with all sorts of quirky British terms.
I was hoping you'd say that. I mean, that's what really sets British English apart, right? Those funny little words and phrases.
Oh, absolutely. Like, did you know that instead of saying take out the trash, they say take out the rubbish?
Oh, rubbish. That's a good one. What else have we got?
Instead of sweater, it's jumper. Pants become trousers. Drugstore is chemist. It's a whole new world of words.
This is great. I'm already starting to feel my vocabulary expanding. The script mentions flashcards and Quizlet as learning tools. Do you think those are helpful?
Absolutely. Especially with all these new words coming at you. It's a fun way to stay organized and really make those words stick.
All right, so we're watching British TV, listening to British music, making flashcards, and maybe even practicing our accent with Elsa Speak. Anything else we should be doing?
Well, the script talks about this really cool idea. Using food as a learning tool.
Food. How does food come into play?
Think about it cooking a classic British dish like a Sunday roast, or trying out a recipe for scones. Following those instructions in British English, that's a whole other level of immersion.
That's brilliant. I never thought of it that way. It's like a delicious way to practice your language skills.
And it's not just about cooking. Think about ordering food in a British restaurant or even just reading a British food blog. You're constantly encountering new vocabulary and cultural insights.
Okay, I'm definitely adding food exploration to my British English to-do list.
Excellent. I think you're really starting to grasp the essence of the script. It's not just about memorizing words and grammar rules. It's about immersing yourself in the culture, having fun with it, and letting the language become a part of your life.
I totally agree. And you know what? I'm already feeling more confident about this whole British English thing. It doesn't seem as daunting as I thought it would be.
That's great to hear. Remember, every journey starts with a single step, and you've already taken several.
So you've covered a lot of ground already. But this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? There's still so much more to explore.
Absolutely. We haven't even touched on things like British slang or regional dialects.
Oh, yeah. Slang. That's a whole other world I can't wait to dive into. But we'll save that for another time.
Sounds like a plan.
Thanks for walking us through this first part of our British English deep dive.
My pleasure.
And for all you listeners out there, stay tuned because we'll be right back with more British English adventures.
We'll be right back. You know what's really fascinating about British English? The fact that even though it's a relatively small country, it has such a diverse range of accents.
Right. It's amazing to me how you can travel like 100 miles.
Yeah.
And suddenly everyone sounds completely different. This script actually mentions a bunch of them.
Oh yeah, there's Cockney, Scouse, Geordie, Brummie. It's like a linguistic tapestry.
A tapestry. I love that analogy. But it does make me wonder, like, how do you even begin to navigate all those different accents?
Well, it can definitely be a bit overwhelming at first, but remember we were talking earlier about RP, or received pronunciation.
Yeah, the standard British accent.
Right, RP is often considered the benchmark, sort of like the foundation. And once you have a grasp of that, it becomes easier to understand how the other accents deviate from it.
Oh, that makes sense. So it's like, learn the rules first, then see how they get bent and broken.
Exactly. And, you know, even within RP, there are variations. There's modern RP, which is what you hear on the BBC, and then there's like traditional RP, which is that more, how do I say it, plummy, upper class accent.
Oh yeah, the kind of accent you might hear in an old movie or something.
Precisely. And then you've got all those regional accents layered on top. It's like each accent tells a story, reflects the history and culture of that particular region.
Okay, I'm really starting to see the depth here. It's not just about learning words, it's about understanding a whole way of speaking, a whole way of life.
You've got it. And you know, some people get really passionate about British accents. Like, there are entire online communities dedicated to discussing them, analyzing them, even debating which one is the best.
Wow, I had no idea. It sounds like a whole subculture. But for someone like me who's just starting out, where do I even begin to learn about all these different accents?
Well, listening is key. Immerse yourself in as much British media as possible. And don't be afraid to seek out content from different regions. Watch a Scottish film, listen to a podcast from Liverpool, try to find a YouTube channel from Newcastle.
Oh, I like that. It's like taking a virtual tour of Britain through its accents. This script actually mentions a couple of resources, like the British Library's Sounds website.
Oh yeah, that's a great one. They have recordings of people from all over the UK speaking in their local dialects. It's like a treasure trove for language enthusiasts.
Okay, that's going on my list. British Library Sounds, check. But let's back up for a second and talk about those vocabulary quirks again. We touched on a few earlier, but this script is packed with even more.
Oh, there's so many gems in here. Like, did you know that instead of saying mailbox, they say postbox?
Postbox. Okay, that's kind of cute. I'm starting to see a pattern here. It's like they take a word and add box to the end of it.
Yeah, you see that a lot. Letterbox, dustbin, telephone box. It's a very British thing.
I'm going to have so much fun using these words. But seriously, do you think these differences in vocabulary reveal something deeper about British culture?
Absolutely. Language is a reflection of a culture's values and worldview. For example, the British love of tea is reflected in their language. They have so many different words and phrases for tea, like cúpa, brew, a nice spot of tea.
Oh, that's so true. And it's not just about the words themselves. It's about the way they use language. Like, the British are known for their dry sense of humor, their understatement, their love of irony.
And all of that comes through in their language. It's like they have this way of saying one thing but meaning something else entirely. It's a subtle art form.
I'm starting to see that. And I'm also starting to realize how much I don't know. Like, this script barely scratches the surface of British English. And I already feel like I've learned so much.
And that's the beauty of it, right? There's always more to discover, always another layer to peel back. It's a lifelong journey of exploration.
I'm ready for the challenge. But I'm also realizing that I need to pace myself. There's a lot to take in.
That's a good point. This script actually talks about that, about finding a sustainable approach to learning. It's like a marathon, not a sprint.
Okay, marathon it is. But you know what? I'm actually excited about it. This whole deep dive has sparked a real curiosity in me. I want to keep learning, keep exploring.
That's fantastic to hear. And you know what? I think you're in a great position to do just that. You've got the resources, the motivation, and most importantly, the right mindset.
Okay, I'm feeling pumped. So what's next on our British English adventure? Where we go from here?
Well, I think it's time to delve into the wild world of British slang.
Oh yes, slang. I've been waiting for this. Give me all the juicy bits.
All right, are you ready for a crash course in British slang?
Hit me with your best shot. I'm ready to learn how to talk like a local.
Well, first things first, you've got to understand that British slang is constantly evolving. What's in one year might be out the next.
Oh, so it's like a moving target.
Exactly. But that's also what makes it so fun. It's a reflection of how people are actually speaking, how language is being used on the streets and in the pubs.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So where do we even begin? This script mentions a few terms like quid for money.
Ah, yes, quid. That's a classic. Instead of saying £5, you'd say 5 quid.
5 quid, got it. What else?
Well, if something is rubbish, it means it's bad or no good.
Right, we talked about that earlier. Instead of trash, it's rubbish.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get the hang of this.
You're a natural. Oh, and if someone tells you to bog off, it means they want you to go away. Bog off. Okay, that's a good one. I can definitely see myself using that one. But you know, some of these slang terms sound almost like insults.
Well, British humor can be quite cheeky, quite sarcastic. They often use slang in a playful way, even if it sounds a bit harsh on the surface.
I guess it's all about context, right? Like who you're talking to and how you say it.
Exactly. It's like you wouldn't use those terms with your granny, but with your mates down the pub, it's all part of the banter.
Right. It's that insider language, that shared understanding that creates a sense of community.
You've hit the nail on the head. Slang is a way of belonging, of showing that you're in the know. And, you know, there are even regional variations in slang. Like in London, you might hear mates used all the time. But up north, they might say pal or love.
Wow, it's like a whole other layer of complexity. But I have to say, I'm loving this deep dive into British slang. It's like getting a glimpse into the heart and soul of British culture. But you know, as much as I'm enjoying learning all these new words and phrases, I'm also starting to realize how much work it takes to really master a language. It's not just about memorizing a few slang terms. It's about understanding the nuances, the cultural context, the way language is used in everyday life. This script actually talks about that, about the importance of consistency and dedication.
You're absolutely right. Learning a language is a journey, not a destination. It takes time, effort, and a willingness to embrace the inevitable mistakes along the way.
Right. This script even talks about those moments of self-doubt where you feel like you're not making any progress. How do you deal with those?
Well, first of all, know that you're not alone. Every language learner goes through those phases. It's perfectly normal to feel frustrated or discouraged at times. But the key is to remember why you started learning in the first place. What was it about British English that sparked your interest?
Well, like we talked about earlier, it's the culture, the humor, the history. I want to be able to connect with people on a deeper level, to understand their stories and perspective.
Exactly. And you know what? You're already doing that.
Yeah.
Just by engaging with this script, by having this conversation, you're opening yourself up to a whole new world. And that's something to be proud of.
You're right. I tend to get focused on the end goal, on becoming fluent, that I forget to appreciate the journey itself.
And that's where the real magic happens. It's in those moments of discovery, those aha moments when something finally clicks. And you know what? Those moments will keep coming as long as you keep putting in the effort.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired. But practically speaking, how do I keep that momentum going? This script talks about setting realistic goals, but I'm not sure where to start.
Well, think about what works best for you. Do you prefer structured learning, like taking a class or using an app? Or do you thrive in more informal settings, like watching movies or listening to music?
I think a combination of both would be ideal. Maybe I could start with an online course to get the basics down, and then supplement that with lots of real-world exposure.
That sounds like a solid plan. And remember, consistency is key. Even if it's just 15 minutes a day, make it a habit to engage with British English in some way.
15 minutes a day, I can definitely commit to that. And who knows, maybe one day I'll even be able to hold my own in a conversation down at a London pub.
I have no doubt you will. And you know what? Even if you never achieve perfect fluency, the journey itself will be incredibly rewarding. You'll gain a deeper understanding of another culture, expand your horizons, and maybe even discover new things about yourself along the way.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And you know, you've given me so much to think about today. I'm walking away from this deep dive feeling not just informed, but inspired.
That's wonderful to hear. And remember, learning British English is a lifelong adventure. Enjoy the ride.
I will. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into British English. For all of you listening, I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Until next time, happy learning.